Support comes from the Arizona Inn, a four-diamond, family-owned historic resort hotel and restaurant on Elm Street near the U of A. Information is at arizonainn.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Ninsel, the executive editor of the Tucson Weekly and Tucson Local Media, and we're in for some trouble tonight. Joining me is Arizona Daily Star cartoonist Dave Fitzsimmons, who recently published a collection of his best strips over the last, how long?
30 years.
The last 30
Three
years.
decades.
3 decades.
Yeah, beginning way back in 1986, when marvelous governor Evan Mecham reigned over the land.
Oh, those were good days.
Those were glorious
You had
days.
material.
For a young satirist,
You have a lot of material to work with today.
I have too much material to work with today.
How do you keep up?
For this, I do not keep up. It's a tsunami of nonsense. So I just dive into it, process as much as I can, and then I will take short 2 or 3 day breaks. I need the oxygen. Unlike in my youth, where I was a lot more resilient, but these days, not quite as resilient. The Trump thing, coupled with Arizona's just sort of rote normal insanity.
It's almost like we've taken it national.
We've taken it national, right? The world is sand beneath my feet day after day. Also, who would have thought I'd be the moralist in the room?
I would never
That's
have imagined.
the darndest thing.
It is.
Yeah.
The roles are really flipped. The last time we were on this show,
Yeah.
we had a good laugh about the idea of Trump being president. Joke's on us.
Trump being president. That's absurd. Who would ever vote for Donald J. Trump? J for genius. Who would vote for that man? Roseanne Barr, apparently.
And here we are.
Doug Ducey.
Can you imagine a presidential administration that put more of the wrong people in charge of each position?
That's what's challenging as a satirist. It is such a target-rich environment. And your question about, yeah, there are so many individuals in his administration who are not good policymakers, and they are certainly not effective administrators, that it's a cornucopia of nonsense. And on a side note, all of this it kind of pleases me in terms of my own judgment, because for years I've been a listener of right-wing talk radio. I listen to it at least 2 or 3 hours a day.
You and Danny. Yeah,
I just love listening to talk radio, and I thought to myself years ago, this platform is going to be irresistible to alpha males. And I think Trump is the natural consequence of goodbye to the fairness doctrine, hello shock jocks who don't question a single caller's assertion, promoting conspiracy theories. Yeah.
It seems like the people he's put in charge actually want to eliminate the agencies they're in charge of. I mean, Rick Perry said he wanted to get rid of the Department of Energy.
Yeah.
Scott Pruitt doesn't seem to be fond of the EPA.
Yes. These individuals, they call to mind a governor we had here in Arizona. And in my imagination, I would often refer to her, I would call it the Jan Brewer effect. In that I recall that when she was in the legislature, she was a firebrand. She would say the most absurd, outrageous, crazy right-wing stuff. Well, then she becomes governor, and it's as though she has to be the grown-up in the room. She has to actually look at the books, look at the budget, and apparently she also has warm feelings towards some who are the least among us. And so she tempered her language, and she found herself quarreling with members of her own party with whom she had stood shoulder to shoulder because she had to deal with the reality of governing, which is what we see. So Arizona really has prepared.
That's not really happening at the White House, though.
It's not happening, not at all.
You have not had that sort of awakening yet.
Right, not at all. And well, let me ask you a question. Do you fear for our republic?
I am very concerned that it's going to be very hard to come back and reestablish the norms that held us together. I think democracy doesn't only require laws, but it requires norms where the separate parties respect one another, even if they disagree. They don't see each other as enemies. And I think we've gotten to a point where we are moving beyond the norms. Like I think during the Obama administration, there were a lot of norms that were shattered. The Supreme Court appointment process, for example, was shattered. The idea of perhaps finding some room to negotiate and agree and pass some kind of legislation. It was just the Republicans said, we're not going to let you do a single thing the whole time you're here. You know, that sort of thing is gone.
Blood sport.
And I think it's going to be hard to get back to that.
Yeah. I don't know what mechanism, device, candidates, individuals could bring us back. I have a good friend who is the Republican cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, Scott Stantis, and we Skype maybe once a week. And we play a game called Solving the World's Problems, because he's sort of at the opposite of where I stand on the spectrum. And we always drift towards the center, and we always are able to find solutions that we're both unhappy with, whether it's gay rights, abortion, yada, guns, yeah. So I think it is possible to remain friends and civil. But I do find that with many of my readers who disagree with me, it is very challenging for me to remain civil.
I enjoy watching the Facebook the video clips where you listen to your voicemail. Those are spectacular.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's my therapy. That's very therapeutic for me because I get more mail and more calls than what you see, so I'll select out the ones, this is probably a silly standard, but who's least likely to see this online and think, I'm going to sue that little rat for who knows what. But yeah.
For playing their message.
For playing their message back. Yeah, I want people to hear the political opposition's tone and tenor, and yeah.
You're busy on Facebook. You're okay with what's going on with the Facebook
I am
thing,
a prostitutski.
Yeah?
Yes, I use, even though Facebook is under well-deserved fire, Facebookski, yes, I will still use it. I'm a prostitute. I'm a Muscovite prostitute, yeah.
How do you keep track of the Arizona? Are you still following the legislature? Because the national stuff is so much bigger.
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's difficult to push Trump back. It's every day there's a straight line delivered by the gods to every cartoonist and satirist and comedian in America by the hour. And then I find myself, I've multiplied that effect because I've started following people on Twitter who are hilarious as well. Stormy Daniels. I follow Stormy Daniels.
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
She is his polarity twin in so many ways.
Yes, well said, yeah. And other
It's amazing they didn't explode when they first had their encounter. Like in a Star Trek episode, matter versus
antimatter,
antimatter.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin.
That's
Yes,
I can't wait for the
concubine.
depositions.
Oh, I
As
can't
my old
wait
friend
for the
Abel
depositions.
Francis used to say.
I find myself having enormous affection for the idea of law.
We seem to be barely able to pay attention to our old friend Allie Miller at this point. Exactly.
Who?
Exactly.
What'd she do this week that's crazy?
She's been up at the legislature
Wait, is
a
that
lot.
slander?
It could be.
It was a question.
It was a question.
But then, there's an assertion within that question.
Yeah,
isn't
let's
there?
hope.
Yeah,
Let's hope we
well.
don't end up with
Yeah.
some
Well,
sort of
what's
legal
new with
action.
Allie?
She's been up at the legislature a lot, trying to stop that Rio Nuevo expansion, but it didn't go so well.
Who's her
for
poodle? Is it
Fincham?
Fincham?
They're in a big fight because Fincham was sponsoring the Rio Nuevo legislation and they've split the sheets. Her and Christie too.
Oh, Christie. I remember during the campaign, he was so optimistic.
Yeah. I think what Allie said was that Ray Carroll was a front stabber, but Steve Christie's a backstabber, was her assertion.
So,
So she's getting along with everybody.
wow. So where does talk radio fall on the Christie Miller
You'd have to
debate,
tell
you
me,
know?
you're the addict.
I'm not sure, huh? I gotta listen to the morning shows more often.
What about this whole Me Too movement, March for Our Lives? Do you have some sense of encouragement watching this stuff unfold, that maybe there's a backlash?
I do have encouragement that the arc of my story is here. I'm dying. I'm done. I'm a failed boomer. It's now the turn of young people to rescue our republic, and it's also the turn of strong women to assert themselves and rescue our republic from the alpha males run amok. So this makes me optimistic. I can't believe I just said that, because I don't really believe that, because I'm immediately flashing on Cambridge Analytica, and yeah.
The African American women saved us in Alabama.
That is true. Yeah, with Doug Jones and Roy.
Roy
Moore.
Spectacular candidate.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Robot cars.
Oh.
You a fan or not a fan? I can't figure out whether I never want to drive again or I never want a robot car. I'm wrestling with this.
I'm a fan of using robot cars to teach young people how to drive. When they get their driver's permit at 15 and 7 months, rather than my son riding with me in the car, he has to ride with a robotic co-pilot. I think that'd be awesome.
That would work out.
Yeah, because I can't stand riding in the car with him. Here in Tucson, my son drives like an elderly man. He's 16, but he's so freaked by Tucson traffic. I feel like I'm riding with an Oro Valley gentleman. It's like, please, for the love of God, move. And watch out for the robot cars, which are everywhere. See, I don't really know how to answer that question about the robot cars, because one part of me thinks, embrace the future. Don't be afraid of technology.
I don't really enjoy driving that much. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather be looking at my phone and let the car drive me. But of course, that's illegal, and
Yeah.
I would never pick up my phone while I'm driving. But I have noticed before it was illegal, and I would do that if there was something I wanted to see on my phone, it was green lights all across this valley, and people would complain about traffic, and I'm the only person who wants to stop at a red light, so
Yeah.
I can check that text or
Yeah.
whatever. And so when I hear people complain about traffic, I guess I'm not that worked up by it.
Wow, my addiction to my cell phone, it's very challenging in my automobile. So I throw it in the back so it's out of my reach.
It's a wise,
It's like the
wise
wolf
thing
man.
to do. Let's take a look at this book of yours.
Oh, this is my swill. It's my name. Fitzsimmons, also the name of the master sergeant who raised me. I was conceived under a B-52.
You know, it's remarkably graphic-free for a cartoon.
It is. They're back here.
Ah, here
There's
they are. Here
There's
they
the
are.
cartoons.
So
Yeah.
this is 30 years of your best.
30 years of my best, and actually I had 9,000 cartoons to go through. And after the first week, I gave up. And I said, Sarah Gasson, you wonderful editorial page editor, would you be kind enough if I winnowed it down to 1,000, to winnow it down to maybe 200? And she made the terrible mistake of agreeing to do that for me. So yeah, I didn't engage in the final process, but yeah, it was fun to see some of these cartoons, like these old ones. This cartoon here I did about the bees of Arizona, normal bee, killer bee, biz bee. Painful joke.
Nice. Where's Rose Mofford's bee?
Yeah. Oh, where is Rose Mofford? I think there's an obit cartoon in here. Maybe.
I went looking for this on Amazon.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it.
No.
Yeah. What's
It
the deal?
only exists in the Citizen Kane empire of Lee Publishing. Yeah, if you want to grab this, you have to go to the Arizona Daily Star's online store site
Really?
to purchase it, or go down.
Antigone's somewhere?
No. You have to
stores
go
at
down to
all?
the lobby of the newspaper. And I found out that my note cards have sold out, and this run of 3,000 is nearly sold out.
Can I suggest that you give it some wider distribution? I just think that's a somewhat narrow.
Well, you know, we might go as wide as having a party at the Loft. one
well.
Saturday. Make it a star podcast, and we'll talk about the book and push the book.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm grateful that anyone buys it. My good friend Pat Bagley, a wonderful cartoonist for a Salt Lake newspaper, publishes his own cartoon books. And editorial cartoons only sell well among we nerds and news geeks.
You're nearly sold out.
But, well, that's because I have a lot of elderly mother figures in Green Valley and such.
Who are driving all the way to the Arizona Daily
Driving
Star?
all the
I'm
way.
sure they're not buying it online.
Going to the Arizona, that's true. That's so true. Oh, the worst is getting snail mail from a fan. Then you have to write the local. Yeah.
You're not just a cartoonist, though. You have a lot to do with the local comedy community. What do you have coming up?
What I do have coming up is pretty far away. It's in April. It's on the 22nd, which is a Sunday. And I got the information here. It's called Laugh Till It Hurts. And I'm emceeing the program, which is a great perch of privilege being the MC of a comedy show. We have 5 comedians lined up, and it's a fundraiser, a variety of charities here in the Valley. And I'm looking to read this quickly to see what we've got. Yes, it was founded by Susie Sexton, Susie Agrillo, who is a judge.
Okay.
Who dresses like a tart and tells vile jokes in the style of Joan Rivers. My buddy Elliot Glicksman will be participating.
Elliot's great.
He is. This is a fundraiser for Ben's Bells and the Send Kids to the Triangle Y camp.
And when is it?
April 22nd.
Oh,
it's
that's
on
good.
Sunday.
This isn't airing until almost then.
Oh, good.
It's not really that far in the future.
Then it's coming right up.
It's coming right up.
It's at the Fox Tucson Theater, and it's a fundraiser. Tickets are $25, but
That's
you know,
a good cause.
Such a good cause, and you get to hear me be rude and inappropriate.
That's like $4 a comedian or something.
At least.
Yeah. You do a live radio show, Prairie Home Companion style, and maybe we shouldn't be talking about Garrison Keillor.
Oh,
he's got swept
my
up in the hole.
hero! I'm so
Me
the
too.
last
out.
asexual droid that you would expect to be.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
You do it live at the Rialto.
I do it live at the Rialto.
Goes out on AZPM.
Yeah.
Anything coming up?
We just do a Christmas show.
Just Christmas?
We just do yeah. We put our heart into it. We didn't do a spring show this year because the various parties are all elsewhere. But so yeah, we'll be doing one at Christmas, or we'll be doing Trump the Musical. We're not sure which.
Either way, it's going to be a great show. Fitz, thank you so much for coming down. Good luck with the book.
Mr. Ninsel, my pleasure. Always good
fun.
to see you.
We will be right back with Michael Tisserland, the author of Crazy, George Harriman, A Life in Black and White. You like that cartoonist?
Love him. Absolutely.
Is he an inspiration?
With the generous support of the Loft Cinema, Tucson's independent movie theater, the Loft features independent foreign and documentary films, cult classics, discussions with filmmakers, and much more, including the Loft Film Fest in November. The Loft is located at 3233 East Speedway Boulevard. Showtimes can be found at loftcinema.org. Support for Zona Politics is provided by Hotel Congress in historic downtown Tucson. More information at hotelcongress.com and 622-8848. The Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce serves the business community in the bilingual, bicultural region of the Arizona-Sonora border and is a proud media partner with Zona Politics. Learn more at TucsonHispanicChamber.org.
All of these young people from the community come together, actually get up and do something.
We can do anything!
I think we've attracted a lot of people that are super passionate.
We're here at the No Ban, No Wall protest.
If you come out of college, you have this experience, you know how things run, you have a huge leg up.
People who have ideas and who are dreamers, you know what I mean, who really want to get themselves out there, I think that they should come here.
My next guest is Michael Tisserand, the author of Crazy, George Harriman, A Life in Black and White. Michael, thanks for joining us here on Zona Politics.
Thanks for having me on Zona Politics. I don't know if I'm going to work any Zona Politics into this, but I'm happy to be here.
Talk about who George Harriman was and where this Crazy Cat cartoon came from.
Yeah, so the Comics Journal ran a survey at the end of the 20th century. What was the best comic strip of the 20th century? And Charles Schulz's Peanuts came in second, and Crazy Cat came in first. So for cartoonists, Crazy Cat, along with a couple others, Little Nemo in Slumberland, and maybe a couple others, but Crazy Cat's considered sort of the pinnacle of cartoon art and cartoon comic strip work. George Harriman came out of New Orleans, Louisiana, my home, where I'm here from. In 1880, he was born. He was born to an incredibly politically active black Creole family at that time. His father and grandfather signed on a petition that was given to Lincoln for voting rights. And then when he turned 10, his family made the, I'm sure, incredibly painful, but not necessarily unique decision to move out of New Orleans and then pass as white. So as a 10-year-old growing up in Los Angeles, George Harriman then was considered a young white boy. And so that's part of his biography, that's part of the story.
Sure.
By the time he was 16, 17 years old, he started working in the Los Angeles Herald. By the time he was 20, he was living in a boarding house in New York, run by a guy named Jones on Coney Island, who had a shooting gallery in the back and a boarding house in the front. And he started working for William Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer and ended up making this amazing comic strip, Crazy Cat, that in some way talks about his story in a really strange and beautiful and allegorical way, and talks about so much else that I'm still figuring out. I still read Crazy Cat and see new things every day.
And it really launched in the infancy of the cartoon industry, right? 1913 was Crazy Cat, and he kind of was introduced a few years before that?
Yeah, one of the very first daily comic strip pages. There were a couple others before 1910, but Hearst's first daily comic strip page had Crazy Cat. Actually had a couple different strips from Harriman on it. One called The Dingbat Family, The Family Upstairs. But Crazy Cat started on that page. And it was very much in the very, very beginning of things. They were kind of making up a language. You know, when Harriman started, he was 20 years old, 1900. That's when he started doing cartoons for Hearst. You know, the idea of bubbles for the words to go into, all this stuff was stuff they were figuring out as they went along. It's a really magical time. And the pages, those big, beautiful ink-filled pages, you know, gave them a lot of room to work.
And you mentioned William Randolph Hearst. He really became a patron of Harriman.
He did, yeah. There's a story, there are a lot of myths about Harriman, and one is that Hearst gave him a lifetime contract. And I researched George Harriman's life for about 8 years, and I never found that contract. And actually, I found letters from Harriman worried he was going to lose his job. But Harriman, Harriman was considered a genius of the comics page. And there'd be this guy named Gilbert Seldes who wrote a book called The Seven Lively Arts, wrote articles in Vanity Fair and Esquire about George Harriman and how he's the greatest. And I think Hearst liked having geniuses getting Hearst paychecks. So he kept him on, even if regular readers were starting to complain. So Crazy Cat is both male and female. The pronouns switch between he and she. And sometimes turns black, sometimes turns white, speaks this language that's part Yiddish, part Creole, part newspaper slang, part Elizabethan English. And a lot of readers would open up their page and not know what to make of it.
He sounds like a forerunner of this very fluid gender/race thing that we're dealing with today, and it was fairly
It's really incredible
in a lot of ways.
You know, I think about, when George Harriman was living in New York City, and very absurdist, and when he was living in New York City in 1900, the census taker came to visit. And he, as a 20-year-old, for the first time, had to say if he was black or white. And, Harriman was a mixed-race Creole from New Orleans. He sort of didn't exist legally or culturally or socially anymore. So I think in the same way that Crazy was neither male nor female, Harriman was neither black or white, and Harriman saw through this in ways that we're still kind of trying to catch up to him, I think.
And he spent time in Arizona. Crazy Cat lived in Arizona, in Coconino County.
Yeah. Crazy Cat lived in Coconino County, which was sort of not really the boundaries of actual Coconino County, because there's one formation that actually goes as far as New Mexico, the Enchanted Mesa, and the Monument Valley is part of Coconino County. The mittens are seen in Crazy Cat. There's one comic where the mittens start clapping and they form a big windstorm.
And he lived there, right?
He came to Arizona as much as he could. For research for this book, I came to Arizona 3 or 4 times. Got to know Harriman's granddaughter, who lives in Tucson and was an incredible help on the book. Really couldn't have been the book it is without her. Also, the Wetherells, who were the first traders with the Dene people. There's a family historian that was a huge help as well. And those were his friends. So he would come out here starting around 1910, I think, up until about the 1930s, mid-1930s was the last trip. And he'd go up to Kayenta in northern Arizona, and he would be here whenever he could.
Let's take a look at one of the strips here to just give people an idea of what these look like if they hadn't actually had a chance to see them.
So I brought a couple. This gives a sense of, there you go, right there, the camera.
Yeah.
So this gives a sense that the page, look at this one, for example, which is a giant party going on the moon, a cat party. This is actually the day after when all the cats got disappear back into the craters. So this was one page. Here's another week. You see, the layout's completely different. He really had an open canvas to work on.
And like you said, they were really inventing the language of the comic strip as they went along.
Absolutely. You know, Patrick McDonnell, the cartoonist that does the Mutts comic strip, has said that if you actually black out the content of the panels in a Crazy Cat strip, it's still a work of art, because he had a different shape and different geometry to every single page. And here's the one I was talking about earlier. You see here our Crazy Cat taking a nap, and the mittens. These are the mittens from Monument Valley. Here they start to applaud and forms a big windstorm that sweeps Crazy Cat away. This is from a book called Sunday Press Publishing does this book where they actually run the comics in the size that they originally ran in the Hearst newspapers. They're enormous. Yeah, big, beautiful
what got you
works.
interested in this?
You know, I was editor of the alt weekly paper in New Orleans, Gambit Weekly, and I knew that George Harriman was from New Orleans, and I loved comics. As a kid, I would beg my mom to leave me at the library, and I found the 741.5 section of the library where all the comics were, and I'd read old Dick Tracy and, you know, even Katzenjammer Kids. I was kind of fascinated by how weird those were. Like Dick Tracy was kind of my Quentin Tarantino. You know, so you know, it was the most violent, you know, and then I found Fearless Fosdick from Al Cap's, you know, Little Abner, and that's even weirder. So I was in love with comics at an early age, but I knew that Harriman was from New Orleans, and no one quite understood his story. You know, he was passing as white, as I mentioned, and his friends called him George the Greek. And that sort of he became known as the son of Greek immigrants. And it was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell policy, because he would have lost everything. He was married to a white woman. African-American cartoonist did not work for William Hearst in the 19-teens and 20s. Yeah. So he was kind of walking a tightrope all his life. And so that New Orleans story was really an unknown story in his life, and really in American history. You know, I think we're just finally coming to grips with what that decision to racially pass meant for someone and what they gave up. One person I talked to who's written a lot about passing says you have to remember that passing is always a story of loss.
Right, and probably of sort of a fear.
Yeah.
You know, that you're going to be uncovered.
And yet he had this story to tell. And I don't want to be reductionist and say that all Crazy Cat is his story of passing, because Crazy Cat expands outward and expands outward and expands outward. It's full of, you know, it also reflects the time that he spent on the Hal Roach studio lot where he drew the strip in the 1920s and had all that great slapstick humor. And, you know, there's banana peels in Crazy Cat as well. And then there's Arizona in Crazy Cat. But there is a lot about identity and language and who we are and who we say we are, and how those two have a hard time coming together. And it still speaks to our times right now in a really active way, I think. Like Crazy Cat doesn't feel dated. When you read a Crazy Cat strip, it doesn't feel dated. So I wanted to learn more about him, and that's what I set out to do.
And you did. So the book is Crazy, and you can find it at our local bookstores.
Yes,
and on Amazon.
And it is on Amazon. I have to say, as I've been traveling the country, it's the independent bookstores like Antigone Books here in Tucson that gives life to authors like me that take on these topics. So I do encourage everybody to shop at their local stores.
So buy it at your local stores.
Buy it, if you're in Tucson, buy it at Antigone.
All right, my guest is Michael Tisserland.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
That is our show for today. My thanks to our media partners at Tucson Weekly, Tucson Local Media, Creative Tucson, and Community Radio, KXCI 91.3 FM, where you can hear a radio version of Zona Politics at 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoons. If you missed any part of today's show, you can find all our episodes at zonapolitics.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Zona Politics is hosted by Tucson Weekly senior writer Jim Ninsel. The program is produced by Jennifer Powers Murphy and Danny Vinnick and edited by Jim Rundle. Special thanks to KXCI, Tucson Weekly, Brink Creative Digital, and all supporters who provide crucial funding for the program. Learn more about Zona Politics at zonapolitics.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.